Yeah. And they see that language.
So thank you everyone coming back to our last session. So throughout the whole 2 days, actually we heard quite a lot of discussion from an academic perspective on how digitalization has been happened for affecting China economy, but actually how it has been implemented in the field, depending on how the private sector say. Now, today we have a great honor to get, a representative, from Alibaba, which is one of the largest e-platform as well as, digitalization, pioneer, enterprise, from China to give us, a briefing about, what has happened over the past 20 years. I'll just pass the floor to, Remon Moes, a senior manager in international trade, Alibaba International Digital Commerce School.
Hi everyone. First of all, before I get started, special thank you to Professor Zhou and Professor Song for inviting me here. This is my first time at ANU. It's also my first time at this event, so it's a special privilege for me. Thank you for Professor Sheng for chairing the session later, and of course for everyone for attending and bearing with me. I'm going to be speaking for an hour, so it's going to be a long session. Afterwards, we open the floor for Q&A, and looking forward to all of your questions. So to get started, during the session yesterday, there was a question from a gentleman in the audience, and I'm paraphrasing here, but it basically came down to, okay, it's great that we have all these AI tools, and I've been reading the headlines, and I've been seeing the headlines about corporate profits and share prices, but for me as an individual, what does it actually mean, this AI revolution? And I believe it was Professor Song who gave an answer, and again, I'm paraphrasing, that there's good and a bad side to it. So on the bad side, there's a lot of stories about, and these are legitimate concerns, of course, job displacement. So is AI going to take over my job, right? On the other hand, and this is also raised by Professor Song, it's also allowing a lot of smaller merchants, gives them the opportunity to now compete with larger companies on a more equal footing. So it's really empowering smaller merchants to also participate in the digital economy, and doing so in a way that they are now not so much more the smaller players, but they can compete with larger companies more equitable. The reason I'm raising this is because it ties in very well with my presentation. So my presentation here today is going to be focused on the practical applications of AI. And at Alibaba, we have hundreds of AI applications. So I don't want to focus on all of them. Instead, I kind of want to take you on a journey of a first-time merchant who goes through the steps of creating that first digital storefront, all the way down to selling their product cross-border, and how AI is helping this merchant to do this. So it's going to be an individual small merchant. Imagine you're doing it yourself or somebody you know who's really starting this journey for the first time. I'm going to showcase how AI is going to make this journey a little bit easier for somebody who is trying to sell cross-border for the first time or sell digitally online for the first time. Before I do this, I'm sure not everybody is familiar with the broad ecosystem of Alibaba. So I'm going to give a quick introduction on this. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because it's not really germane to what I'm talking about. But in a broad sense, we have the B2C arm. That can be domestic B2C, can also be cross-border B2C. So that's business to customers. Can be an individual merchant selling to a customer, either domestically or cross-border. The first company at Alibaba is Alibaba.com, founded in 1999, which is the world's largest B2B platform. So this really allows merchants to sell wholesale bulk to buyers all across the world. So we have the internationally, domestically. The other services I'm not going to focus on too much. I think the takeaway from this is that the ecosystem of Alibaba enables you in every step of the logistic chain to use a service to allow you to, as a merchant, sell either domestically or cross-border. So Alibaba was founded on the principle of making it easy to do business anywhere in the world. In 2016, the EWTP initiative was launched. And EWTP really builds on this mission. So from making it easy to do business anywhere to making it inclusive as well. To take a small step back, yesterday I was asked a question actually by Professor Duchamp. How is Alibaba's AI different from all of the other, the DeepSeeks, the ChatGPT? How is it really different? And I think the difference for us is that at our core, we are still a platform that enables merchants to sell profitably. So the AI is really a component to that, making this easier. We do offer the AI as a standalone tool, but we're making a lot of other applications. They have the AI, and then they think about, okay, how can we build products on top of this? We already have the products. Our DNA is really, as a platform, we don't really have our own products. The success of us as a company really relies on merchants being successful on our platform. So if we can allow through AI to have more merchants to be successful and to allow more merchants to be more successful, then by proxy, this benefits us as well. So EWTP was really founded with the mission of making this inclusive. I'm highlighting this as well because one of the applications that I'll talk to later is a result of the EWTP platform. For those who are familiar with the Alibaba story, I'm going to take you back a little bit. I don't see it right now, but yesterday I was talking with a Chinese PhD student from Shenzhen, and we talked about the city of Yiwu. I don't know, just by a show of hands, people that are familiar with the city of Yiwu. I see hands raising, I also see a lot of hands staying down. So I'll give you a little bit of that. Yiwu is a city where millions of merchants, especially small merchants, are selling to buyers. So it's a city in China, and it's really selling to merchants is really part of its DNA. And it's the Yiwu model is really something that is a very big part of the economy of China. The reason I'm raising this is because when Alibaba launched its local B2C platform, Taobao, at the time, right now we think of Taobao or we think of Alibaba as a really big and successful platform. At the time that e-commerce started in China, there were articles in the Financial Times, Business Week, and Wall Street Journal. They talked about the rise of China as an e-commerce market. My question to you is, where did they rank Alibaba in these articles? That's a kind of normal question. I'll answer myself. The articles, none of these publications ranked Alibaba at all. So they were talking about DumDum, you probably never heard of. They were talking about eBay. But none of these companies succeeded where Alibaba did. So how come that such a small company that wasn't even on the radar of these major financial publications, how was it able to succeed? Jack Ma is very known for it, within China, very known for his famous quotes. One of the quotes I'm going to butcher here a little bit, I'm not as eloquent as he is. One of his quotes is that our competition is an elephant and we are ants. So at first glance, the elephant will trample the ant. However, what are the defining characteristics of an ant? An ant is fast and nimble. It is strong beyond its size. It works together well, and it's very, very hard working. So the takeaway from this is that if we can be agile, if we can work together, and if we can pull above our weight, then we can outwork the elephant. The elephant will get tired and we will succeed. So that's just got to show that from the very first point that Alibaba was founded, from its inception, the focus has always been on smaller merchants. And one of the reasons why Taobao succeeded in the end, whereas these bigger players did not, is because of the vision that the Yiwu model is how you succeed in China. So by empowering smaller merchants, that is how you succeed as an e-commerce platform. And that's really, since then, been ingrained into our DNA and has really become a very big defining part of Alibaba. And the EWTP initiative really is something that embodies that. So to start the journey, sorry, I'm just going to take a sip of water. 1 hour, right? So to start the journey, the first step is to create a digital storefront. Now, anybody who has ever run a small company or know somebody who knows runs a small company knows that what is very important when you have a small company is to have as little downtime as possible. Basically, giving your overhead low. So if you're creating a small your first digital storefront, what you would like to do is to make sure that this storefront is up and running as quick as possible. Anytime that you have products to sell, but you are not putting those products in front of your buyer, is time that you are still paying for the rent, still paying for your staff, still paying for the cleaning lady, but no money is coming in. So these AI tools, through a bunch of different ways, allow merchants to be up and running quicker as possible and to optimize their storefronts as well. So as a first step, this is my friend from Shenzhen, by the way, who I was referring to. As a first step, is AI document recognition, because if you start a storefront, you have to make sure that you're verifying the whole documents required. This is typically a very long process, but with AI scanning, this can be done a lot faster. Then you can set up your store. So maybe you already have a website. You already put the website, you populate the website, and now you're thinking, I take all my products from my website and put it now on this digital storefront. There are now tools such as a URL product migration tool that allows you to put in your URL, click on it, and it will populate your product. So all of your product pictures, all of your product descriptions, everything, it will take and put it online on your digital storefront. Then the next step is to optimize this. And I will actually go into detail about that a little bit more, so I'm not going to talk about it now. Then what you want to do is make sure that you get the inquiries, your product gets in front of the right audience, and then perform your analysis and communicate with your potential clients. So the first step is optimizing your page. Smart onboarding I already talked about, so optimizing your page. So I'll show a very quick video. So for this merchant that we're talking about that is starting his own journey or her own journey, she is going to sell candles. So already has a picture of the candle, but maybe wants to optimize this picture a little bit. So what the AI tool can do, it can take away the backgrounds, crop the background, and put different backgrounds behind it. It's going to be done with a bunch of different tools. And this just allows the merchant to have a more professional display of their products. A lot of merchants starting out might not have the resources, might not have the money to hire a professional photographer. So this allows them to at least show their products in a bit of a more professional manner. Now, from this image generation, you can also take the next step, and that is to create a video on it. Just play the same one again, yes. There we go. So it's a very basic video in this case, nothing too fancy, but it is another way to showcase your product. You can add captions to it, music to it, narration to it, so you can have a product introduction video basically for potential buyers. It does give a new kind of perspective on your product for the potential buyers. And then after this, you can also generate details based on this product. So you actually, let's say in this scenario, we've already uploaded our URL, right? So we might already have some product descriptions. But what the AI can do is it builds on about 10 million postings. And it's analyzed this for success, for the click rate on these postings, essentially. And what it does, it looks at your description and says, like, how can I improve this description to get more traffic? So maybe you just put your subscription on there, I sell candles. And it looks at your product, it looks at the description, because it analyzes both the product, the picture, and the description. Then it looks at the background data. So, okay, I have this product, I have this description, how can I optimize this description? And how can I optimize the title to make sure that I'm getting as much traffic as possible? See if this works? Yes. So, in this case, it's generating a description. This is the description that it says certain characteristics where it's focusing on where the AI says, if you post your product like this, the likelihood of you selling is going to be a lot higher. I'll talk about this in a little bit more in detail later as well. And then there are the product insights. Because maybe you're selling your candles, but you don't know where to sell your candles. Am I supposed to sell them in Australia? Am I supposed to sell them in South Korea? And to which audience, right? And this can be advertising across social media. This is not specifically to Alibaba, right? This is product insights that you can use for broad marketing. So it takes the characteristics of your products, it takes the products that you have, analyzes this against the background information, And then based on that gives you certain recommendations, basically on where to focus, where to find your audience. There is actually a tool that's much more sophisticated than this that I will talk about later as well. This is just a quick introduction. So now that we've put together our store, we really want to optimize it. So in short, we want to make sure that our storefront is as appealing as possible for our potential audience. So there's a few ways of doing this, and also to make your audience as broad as possible, I should say, because one of the things is translation part. Now you might think, well, translation, there's Google Translate, there's a lot of translation tools. However, this translation is specifically built based on data that translates product titles, descriptions, live chats, anything that is sales focused. So it's not just going to take your description and translate it into another language. It's actually going to learn from this data and say, okay, what kind of wording sells the best in Spain versus what kind of wording sells the best in Korea or in Australia. And it takes that and then it basically optimizes your product description there. The other part is an image editor. So I've already kind of shown this, but there's more features that you can use with the image editor. And now let's say that our storefront also sells clothing, not just candles. Not the most logical combination, but let's say we're trying both markets. There's also a tool that allows you to put your clothing onto virtual models. So there's virtual models, you have your clothing, it will adjust the clothing to fit the models. You can choose different types of models. You can import your product pictures in bulk. And then what it will do is that it will put them on different types of models, which again, it has two advantages. Not everybody can afford to hire models. That was said yesterday as well. But another thing, what's important as well, that wasn't discussed yesterday, but again, a very important part that ties into what I was saying before. Hiring models, taking pictures, editing the pictures, posting them online, it's a long process. You're a small merchant, you want to get started, start selling as quick as possible. So this allows you, within no time essentially, to have different models, putting on your clothing, and allowing you to sell these online. So this is just an example of this. You can also have already an existing model, replace it with another model. If you wanted to, the AI recognizes the pose of the model, replaces it with another model who has the same pose. Then the text translation, and also what it does, it looks at the actual picture and it will write description based on this picture. So if there's defining characteristics that you have not put in your description, but they are in the picture, then it will optimize this description based on the characteristics as they are listed in the picture itself. Oh, didn't know that was going to happen. All right. So the ecosystem behind this, I think an important part is that it combines the visual language data more naturally. So basically what it does is, where a lot of tools, they can analyze the picture, they can analyze the text, and then they bridge them together. But the reason why this model itself has been an award-winning model by independent industry associations. What this model does, it takes both of them and it makes a combined story out of them. So it doesn't bridge it together, but it makes a story out of just the way that you and I would. We would look at a picture, we look at the description, and a natural story comes out of that. That's what the AI does as well. And it can then, for instance, if it is labeling or if it is translating, it can recognize which parts are relevant, which parts are not relevant. For instance, you might have a certificate on here, right? You don't want to have this translated. Or you might have your product name on there, which you don't want to have translated, right? Or you can even say to the AI in this case, because that's automatic. We can also say to the AI, hey, I have a subscription, a description in my own native language. So I want to make sure, because part of my brand is that it comes from a certain country, right? I'm selling coffee from Colombia, and the description is in the slogan is in Spanish. I want to keep that because I want to keep that Colombian flavor to it. You can teach the AI to say, like, these are specific phrases that are associated with my brand, so I want to make sure that you keep these or that you include these. And this is fine-tuned on 100 million plus, I should say, it says 100 million here, e-commerce images and text samples. So basically the public postings that we have on our platforms get analyzed by the AI, and it's constantly updating. It's trained on 7 billion parameters. It's a little bit more on the technical side. So again, I think the key takeaway here is that this e-commerce, it understands what a product title is. It just doesn't just translate it. It understands what the description is. And it's translated into marketing language. And this is the organization I was talking about, Flores, which gave this tool the highest benchmarks. So this is the virtual modeling that I was talking about. I've already talked about this, so I'm not going to go into detail again, but again, it does it in batches. It adjusts the clothing. It doesn't actually create a new image. It just adjusts the image clothing to fit the model. And then on top of that, again, the big benefit is reducing the time to market. Now you've optimized your page. You've posted your page, you've optimized your page. Now clients are starting to flood in. How are you going to respond to these clients? There's two main ways of doing this. So one is a completely autopilot assistant. And this autopilot is taught by your actual communication with clients. And if you want to, you can have it communicate while you're asleep with clients, especially on certain questions that you would like it to answer. Another way of doing it is that you use the AI basically to help you complete your responses. So obviously maybe there's going to be a lot of overlap, maybe there's going to be a lot of recurring things, maybe there's certain things that you want to say in a more professional manner. It gives you suggestions, and based on the suggestions, you can auto-complete and continue the conversation. And the more you do this, of course, the better the AI becomes. The better AI becomes on responding on your behalf and to assist you in responding. So this is the reply generation. As a result of this autopilot, co-pilot, all of the features that I just showed you, right? The exposure of the average page goes up by 200%. The amount of inquiries goes up by 135%. So you also see that there's a difference here between a co-pilot and the autopilot. Not everything is necessarily on the co-pilot. But one important feature as well here is that we talked about that it will write the product descriptions and then it will write the titles for you. But it will actually continue to update it. So it will look at, let's say you have 100 candles on there. So like these candles are underperforming. What can I do in the title and the product description to make sure that they get more exposure? What can I do to maybe get these lower performing products to go up the ranks a little bit? So it's constantly, and this can be done automatically or on Copilot, it's constantly updating your subscriptions to try to get more exposure for your products. Then the request for quotation rate. So this is the rate percentage of inquiries that you get that you can respond to sell. Essentially, it goes up 36% as part of using these AI tools. So basically, what it can also do, and I'll talk about that in detail more later on as well, is that it can take the information from your communication with your clients, and it can create a contract or response to a request for quotation out of this as well. So it will capture all of this information, and then it will put this into a contract or into a request or into a response to a request for quotation, and then based on that, you can start the sales process. And this buyer response rate, because what's really important on these platforms is that you respond to them quickly. Because a lot of buyers, they will contact 10 storefronts. So okay, this person's on accounts, this person's on, there's billions of products on Alibaba platforms. So especially in a very highly competitive market like China, what's really important is you get an answer to your question. Now, if you don't give me an answer, I'll go to the next one. So the buyer response rate goes up by about 50% based on using the AI tool on the research that we've done and so forth. So now you've optimized your page. What you want to do now is make sure that your page gets in front of the right people. So you want to promote your storefronts, but you don't just want to promote your storefront. You want to make sure that in this case we're selling clothes, we're selling candles. We want to sell these candles to people that are interested in buying candles. So how many of you have heard of Double 11? Think of Black Friday, but then about 10 times a day. That's Double 11. So Double 11 is the biggest shopping mall actually in Asia and in China as well. And during this past Double 11, an AI traffic tool was launched that allows merchants to do smart promotion of their product. So what does that mean? So think of it essentially as a marketing assistant run by artificial intelligence. It promotes your products through artificial intelligence through a few different ways. The first is smart product selection. So based on, for instance, the season or based on current trends, it will look and say which one of the products that you are selling are most likely to sell today. So for instance, right now is not a good time to sell winter coats in Australia, right? It might be a good in another place in China, it might be a good time to sell winter coats. So this is smart enough to recognize. In Australia, I'm not going to promote my winter coats. In China, I am going to promote my winter coats. And based on the current trends, these are the products that I am going to suggest. Then finding the right customer. So we've got the right market now, but even if I'm selling my winter coats in China, I don't want to sell them to on a surfing website, right? Or on something else that has nothing to do with winter coats. You want to make sure that if it goes on social media or as an ad, that it is finding the right target audience. So the AI smart traffic generator will look at the product, identify who is most likely to buy this product, and then advertise it to the right people. Then it will create automatically an ad, and then it will also look at the product and look at the current trends, generate an ad that is most likely to capture the audience's eyeballs. And then for anybody who is familiar with advertising online, it works on a bidding system. So the AI will, based on your budget, will automatically bid and adjust the bid to try to get your advertisement out there from the right people, get as many click-throughs as possible. And all of this happens hands-free, so you don't have to worry about it. So we ran this through Double 11. The response of this, or the results of this, are that the click-through rate, so that's the amount of people that click on the ad and go onto your page, right? But went up by 50%. The amount of sales on average went up by 30%. Again, this is during the largest shopping festival essentially in the world. And the ROI, this is in this case, you're spending $1 on your ad, you're getting $9 back in your ad. So it's ninefold. So hugely successful. And it really allows, again, it allows people that might not necessarily initially have the expertise to do an SEO campaign, right? Might not have the budget to hire an SEO experts to also participate and get a great return on investment. So the key benefits really for merchants are you only pay on successful transaction. It's very important. You have your budget, somebody clicks on your ad, that's not enough. The person has to buy. The moment the person buys is the moment that you pay. There's no prepayment needed. You just set your budget, but there's no prepayment needed. It covers both internal and external platforms. So you can advertise on Alibaba platforms. You can also advertise on social media, for instance, or on websites. And it's completely hands-free. So there is not really any human intervention needed. So now you have your products, you've put them online, you've optimized them for different markets, you know where to sell, and you're running your marketing campaign. So you're very successful, but you need more products. So what are you going to do? You're going to source new products. They can be materials, maybe wax or whatever you need for candles. It can also be materials for clothing. So what is the best way of doing this? Now, traditionally, maybe I can start with that. Traditionally, what you would have to do is you have to go through pages of suitable suppliers, and then each page you have to see, does it supplier meet my needs? Because let's say that I'm looking for fabric, right? You look for suppliers for these fabrics, but you don't need just need fabric. You need fabric that you can import into your country. You need suppliers that have a certain amount of production capability. And you need maybe these colors of fabric, but you don't need these colors of fabric. So there's a lot of different parameters. So rather than going through this manually, there's an AI tool right now that allows you to go and put in your description, your detailed description of what you need, and then filters through all of the suppliers that meets these demands. So let's say you get 10 suppliers, you know that all of these suppliers meet your demands. So now you can, for you look at your unique characteristics, what's important, price, fabric, quality, delivery time, whatever it is, you can go through this curated list of suppliers without needing to have somebody on staff who does that for you, or you doing this yourself. Again, a lot of time spent. This Axio, it's called Axio, is both a standalone platform as well as a platform that runs on the back end. So this platform, it analyzes 50 million supplier profiles and 100 billion product listings. So every time, every candle that I have on my page is a product listing, right? So it's not an actual page, but let's say I'm selling 100 candles on my page, that's 100 product listings. And based on that, basically, once it analyzes that, based on your parameters, it's going to give you the best possible suppliers. There's a bunch of different ways that you can put the information in there. For instance, if you have a copy of a certificate that you want your supplier to have, you can put it on there. It will analyze it. This can also be, because we're now talking about somebody who's buying, but let's say that I as a merchant, I want to start selling. But I don't know really what I should be selling. You can use this tool to analyze this as well, or how I should be selling P2B, I should say. I want to sell P2B. Or I'm going to do something completely different. I feel like I'm earning a lot of money. It's always my dream to start a glamping company or something along those lines. But I don't know where to get started. You can go to the search engine. You say like, I want to start a glamping company. I don't know what kind of materials to buy. I don't know where I should build it. I don't know what the growth rates for the market is. This tool will actually analyze all of this for you and then give you a list of suppliers who can give you these materials. So it's very, very powerful. The tool itself, it's now been launched last year. And since then, it's got over 2 million users. So it has natural language capability. So that's what I talked about before as well. So you can make the description as detailed as possible. The AI will only give you suppliers who meet every aspect of this description. Saves you a lot of time of having to go through all of the platforms or all of the pages to look, for instance, for IP protection, or to look for the different types of products that they have, or the pricing, or the certificates that they have. So it's basically automated supplier vetting. Does compliance checks. I talked about that a little bit as well. Just because a product is sold somewhere doesn't mean you can import it. So you can tell the AI, I need to import it to where I live, make sure that this supplier is compliant. And you can send out RFQs in bulk. So let's say that you find 10 suppliers, you don't have to approach 10 different suppliers with a separate RFQ. The supplier can look at what you wrote down in your search. And then based on that, write an RFQ for you. You can then send it out to 10 different suppliers if you want to, 20 different suppliers, 100 different suppliers. So the estimate right now is that based on this, the manual workflow involved has gone down by 70%. So you can imagine the time that is saved with sourcing, the time that is saved with vetting these suppliers. That's all time that you can save and use to sell to more people and focus on sales. Just a few general trends. So 90% right now, B2B buyers are already using some sort of AI in their sourcing. That can either be sourcing or their supplier evaluation process. Chief product officers, 92% have indicated that they are looking to invest into generative AI to make sure that their jobs essentially are more easy. The B2B market, people don't really think of it about the B2B market. It's actually, it's humongous. It's 30 trillion US dollars. That's an addressable market for B2B. And the amount of money that is invested in procurement software from last year to this year has gone up by almost 12%, 11.5% to 6.6 billion. Let's get this because it's just the advantage I already talked about this. But now through your journey, again, you've done everything. You've created your pages, you've marketed your pages, you have optimized your marketing, you've been very successful, so you started sourcing more products, but also you need to put in, especially if you're selling B2B, it's less on the B2C side, but you need to have contracts in place. So at Alibaba, we also have a contract generation tool, essentially. It's actually two different tools. One of the tools that looks at what your conversation with your buyer has been. And then again, the AI, what it also does, I should add that, when you're having a conversation and when it gets to this stage, it will suggest for you, right? You have to discuss Incoterms, for instance. You have to discuss pricing, you have to discuss quantity. You have to discuss with the buyer when exactly the first payment is going to be made. It can take all this information from these different discussions, combine this into a contract. You can look at the contract. If you're okay with the contract, you can send it out. So this is very useful for if you have one buyer that you're talking to. Imagine if you're talking to a bunch of different buyers. It really takes all of the essential information, puts it into a contract, sends it out on your terms. Now, let's say that you have both agreed on this contract, but a payment needs to be made. You can essentially set up a smart contract. And there's a tool that's going to be released later this year that can help with the payment for this as well. But essentially what it does, it sets up a payment trigger. So you can, for instance, say as an example, this is great, I love it. I'm 100% interested in buying this, but I first want to see a sample. And once I've received the sample, if I'm okay with this, then I want to make the payment. So you can have a trigger in your contract that the moment that the sample is approved, for instance, that a payment goes through. Or you say, because on the B2B side, I should add to this, the actual payment side the terms of payment are negotiated by you. It has nothing to do with Alibaba. So it's going to be different for every supplier. Maybe they're going to say, okay, I want to pay a down payment for the first shipment, but I don't want to do the full payment first. So then you can link it essentially to the shipment. The shipment comes in, okay, great, payment goes through. So you can do the terms of the payment based on what you are drafting into your contract. Then the last part, and I want to spend a little bit of time on this because this is actually an overlooked part, and it's very, very important. Because if you want to start selling cross-border, okay, if you want to start selling cross-border, it's actually a lot more difficult than a lot of people imagine. It's not just about finding the right audience. It's not just about talking to the right people, but it is about being compliant with different markets in an ever-evolving cross-border compliance environment. So I actually started with kind of a case study. So it was a study by the WTO. This is a report, you can look it up, it's called the Trade Tech Study. And one of the things that it looked at, this is a specific scenario, it looked at Kenyan flower growers. So Kenya is actually the largest market in the world for flowers, for roses specifically, actually. Rotterdam is, or the Netherlands, is the biggest place for selling flowers, including roses. Now, for an average grower of flowers, if that person wants to sell his flowers, ship them to the Netherlands, the production might not be the problem. Might have everything in place to pack, take good care of these flowers, grow the flowers, and even ship them. But the amount of paperwork that's included, it's listed here. So you need 36 different documents, 240 copies of these documents, and overall the stack of documents that you produce, they estimate is about 25%. Oh, sorry, 25 centimeters. That is about the size of a 6-month-old wombat. So Joey, that just comes out of the pouch. So it's a lot of different documents, right? I like to measure things in wombats. Sorry, I'm not really big fan of measures. So it's a big stack of documents. So you can assume that the cost involved with preparing this paperwork is humongous, and it's not something that small merchants have either the internal resources for, or the money to outsource, and they don't have the production capacity to justify this cost. And this is assuming that you're filling out all of this paperwork and it's all correct, right? What if there's a mistake in the paperwork? You're shipping over your flowers, there's a mistake in the paperwork, what are you going to do? Right? So the estimate in the study itself is that the cost of handling this paperwork can actually be higher than physically moving the product across borders, right? It's all about economy of scale. So what ends up happening is the big multinationals that are taking the bulk of the value. They're not doing the manual labor, but they have the capacity to buy from different flower growers, ship it across, and then sell it and make the majority of the money. So I personally, under the EWTP initiative, I work with African coffee growers. Rwanda, Ethiopia, 40% of the economy of Rwanda is directly tied in with coffee production. How many of you in here know a single Rwandan coffee brand? I don't know. I know them because I work with them, but they're not known. The biggest coffee brands in the world are DE Peets, and are Nestle. DE Peets is from the Netherlands. Nestle is from Switzerland. The amount of coffee grown in the Netherlands and the Switzerland is exactly 0. Yet they are the biggest coffee brands in the world. Meanwhile, they have an area they call the coffee belt, right? It includes places like Colombia, Mexico, places that you associate more with coffee. None of these places have their own coffee brands. Even if you look at chains, what chains are there? There's Starbucks. There's maybe McDonald's Cafe, McCafe, Hortons, Luckin. There you go. So these are except for Luckin, American and Canadian brands, right? The United States has a little bit of coffee production in Hawaii, but the bulk of their coffee beans are also imported. So basically, every brand that we associate with coffee has nothing to do with the country of origin. Now, what is the PSP platform? It's a cross-border e-commerce compliance and trade platform. So essentially what it does, it takes this sentiment that smaller merchants should also be able to participate in cross-border trade. It combines it with the advent of the internet, technological development, AI, and it basically says that it's possible. Now, all of the costs that are involved with it, they can be saved now through the use of these kind of technologies. So it connects merchants to a global market and it integrates with customs, logistics, and compliance. I'm not sure how familiar any of you guys are with Chinese customs. The Chinese customs is actually they have a very sophisticated model, which actually in a lot of the countries, because I travel a lot for my work, talk to a lot of the different customs offices, and they can copy actually the Chinese model because of how efficient it is. So basically, in a nutshell, what it does, it has two different models that are geared towards e-commerce, 9610, 1210. And basically what it focuses on, it takes the sale of the e-commerce, it takes the logistics, and it takes the customs, and all of those documents combined, and if all of those three documents are in order, you can do the shipment. Whereas a lot of customs, they basically look at like, okay, we can do the clearance based on customs, but then we still have to look at the as the payment being processed for this, and is this compliant? So it's a far more efficient model. And because everything is digitalized, it also makes it a lot easier actually to do declarations that are completely digital. The PSP system is also powered by AI. It can do automated customs document processing. For instance, there's in EBU, there is a hub that is empowered by the PSP system. There's also one in Belgium and Liège. What a merchant in EBU can do, but also what a merchant in Europe can do, is it can, through the platform, submit a document or submit its application based on your products. The AI will then look at HS codes. HS codes are essentially an identifier for customs for cross-border shipping. And then the ID matching, tax ID matching. So it can, based on your product description, your specifications, also on the image of the product, it can look at that, analyze it, and say, needs this HS code, and needs this tax code. It can then also look and translate the declaration, for instance. It can add the correct product classification and the correct tariff classification, and it is constantly updated. It also allows you to monitor regulatory compliance. So essentially, all of the functions that you would typically outsource, or that you have a specialist in your office to do, all of that has been digitalized. And this has been done with over 2 million products and has a accuracy of over 99.9%. So it's incredibly accurate. So a merchant in China can submit its declaration in Chinese, and in Europe it will arrive in the language that the customs wants to see it in, and vice versa. So classification automatically classifies the correct codes, and compliance, it checks the compliance with compliance. Also, you can monitor the product. So the logistics company might want to monitor the product, the merchant might want to, and obviously the merchant wants to know, is my product compliant, right? The logistics company wants to make sure, is it arriving? The customs wants to make sure, is everything complete, is everything accurate? So all of that is basically done behind the scenes. It also logs in directly with the system that the merchant or a broker, for instance, might be using through an API connection. So the benefits for this, it reduces paperwork, it simplifies the process. So that ties in again to those stacks of paperwork, so walnut-sized paperwork that we were talking about just now. It lowers the risk of penalties and delays. Again, it's based on over 2 million shipments, and based on that, it has 99.9% accuracy. By doing all of this, and this again ties in with what we've been talking about before, about bringing down that time that is needed to get your product to the seller. The more time that your product takes in a certain warehouse is time that you're not selling it directly to a consumer. With this system, within a day, you can have your shipment cleared. So this is a vision that Alibaba has deployed all throughout the world to make it easier for smaller merchants to sell cross-border, to compete with larger companies on a more equal scale. So that maybe, let's say I'm invited again, a year from now, 2 years from now, when I am talking about coffee growers, we are able to name a coffee grower from Rwanda, or we are able to name a flower brand, rose brand from Kenya, instead of only knowing the multinationals. So it's easy market entry for SMEs, it lowers operational costs, has the API integration, so it links with the ERP system of the merchant, and the customer support also comes in multiple languages. Efficiently access. this is the whole journey that I wanted to talk about for the merchant. But there are also some other tools that I wanted to highlight that don't follow the same journey that I was talking about, but at the same time, they fit the theme of making it easier for individuals to do their job more efficiently and better. So actually what I'll talk about first is an AI tool that is specifically for the experience. So this is more kind of to showcase what's happening on the cutting edge of AI. And then I will talk about how AI tools are being deployed in hospitals. So there is a product now that's called Taobao Vision. And basically what this product is, it links through AI your shopping experience through these VR glasses, such as the Google product. So through this, basically, it can generate digital salespeople who are recommending you personalized items. You can then see the item and, for instance, place it in your living room. So let's say you have the headset, you're sitting at home, you want to buy a new couch, you have the space for your couch. Couch needs to be a certain size, you want to make sure that it fits, you want to make sure it looks good. You can select your product on Taobao, local B2C platform. You can place it then in your living room, exactly where you want it. So you can see right away, does it fit or not? Does it look good or not? And then even if you want to, you can generate an artificial AI person who will explain the product features to you. So you can do that with all sorts of products. Now, not everybody has a headset yet. So a first step of this as well that they're now doing is that they are creating storefronts throughout China. And in these storefronts, they're essentially empty. So you can walk through the storefront and you have access to millions of products. And you can look at them through AI goggles, essentially. So I have a video on this. So this is actually the first storefront, which is right now in the Alibaba campus. And one of the things that it will showcase is actually buying the Xiaomi car through these VR goggles. And look at the car. It's inside the car. Now it's not exactly the same as buying the car itself, but imagine it's with a lot of different products. So here's your AI person who is explaining the benefits of products to you. You can ask questions about the product. And this is applicable for a bunch of different types of products. This is web pocket. But yeah, in a little bit we'll show some other features as well.
不再需要高昂的稳定成本，顾客在100平米的空间中即可深度试用和选购商品。一套虚拟空间资产可快速复制到多家门店，结合 AI 数字人导购，可同时服务更多顾客。我们的第一家店坐落于杭州阿里巴巴全球总部，来旗舰店将扩展至更多城市和国家，期待你与我们同行。
So just something I wanted to show more on kind of what's happening and where AI might be going, combining AI with VR. So one thing that I want to talk about as well is an AI screening tool, which is developed by our research arm Download Academy. So in China, there's actually a growth in cancers. And at the same time, the amount of people that are like radiologists that are able to detect this are not decreasing, but they're not keeping up at the same pace. So right now, more than 7,000 people every day die due to cancer, and treatment is expected to cost about $1 trillion by 2030. The problem with traditional screening for a lot of these cancers, they are called screening methods. So it means you have to insert something into your body, for instance. So they're kind of painful, costly, and they're inaccurate. Not every hospital has them either. So through AI, it's possible through non-contrast CT scans, so these are just scans, you don't have to put anything in your body, to scan for more types of cancer and to scan for them more accurately. So the advantage of this is that these kind of scans are available in hospitals, in every hospital in China. It also is significantly lower. It's obviously also very important when you want to do as many as possible. So it's significantly lower as well. It is safer because there's no actual injection taking place. And right now, 9 different conditions can be screened simultaneously with one scan. So you have one scan, can scan for 9 different types of conditions. In terms of the comparison, so actually AI is already a lot more accurate with detecting these types of conditions than a radiologist is. So the sensitivity of a scan is 95%. The specificity, that's basically the chances that the AI has it wrong are essentially don't exist. It's 99.99999% or something along those lines. This is in terms of the sensitivity, it's 15% higher than of a radiologist. In terms of the specificity, it's about 7% higher than a radiologist. So in a simple way of saying it, per 100 patients, right, you'll be able to, let's say 100 patients that have cancer, you'll be able to detect 15 more patients that have cancer than through traditional methods. This is specific cancer of the stomach, which is really difficult to detect. So you see that the sensitivity is actually for radiologists much lower. For AI, it's also not perfect, it's 80%, but it's a lot higher. Where the AI is really thrives, it is the specificity actually. So what you see for all of these cancers, the AI actually outperforms traditional radiologists. Sorry, gastric cancer was the stomach cancer. I also have a medical background. Oh, I did some gastric cancer. And again, this all takes place based on these scans. And overall, on average, it has a 21 point improvement over radiologists. This is a specific cancer that's actually very, very deadly, and it's very difficult to detect. So it gets misdiagnosed almost half of the time. And this is the type of cancer where actually hours matter, not days, but hours. And with AI, you can reduce the amount of missed diagnosis down to 5%, less than 5%, rather than a little bit less than 50%. So it has a 4 + 1 + 4 kind of screening system. So those are the 9 that I talked about. 4 are major cancers. And again, a lot of these can only be detected currently through these methods where you actually have to insert something into somebody's body, which is not pleasant, but also it's not available everywhere. It's a lot more costly. This can all be done by scans. And also for chronic condition. I don't think we talked about that really, but basically, let's say your body mass, loss of muscle, those kind of things, it can also detect. The capability itself can do an analysis within a minute, or a little bit over a minute, I should say, and then does a comprehensive report of all 9 conditions within 2 minutes, and can detect all sorts of different abnormal findings that are related to these types of conditions. So obviously, moving forward, we hope that this gets deployed more worldwide, more within China, and can detect more and more with higher accuracy in hospitals worldwide. This is essentially what a scan looks like. Don't ask me to read it, I'm not a radiologist, but basically the takeaway from this is that it can look at all of these different things, and it can basically give you a high risk, medium risk, normal risk. So it can detect these cancers at a very early stage due to its high accuracy. The international impact of this, so it's been recognized by the Fortune 20 award Change the World edition. Was the only Chinese company that was in the top 10. It's been recognized as a speaker at the UN AI for Good, and it's been published through a number of citations and papers, as well as received WHO recognition in its Health Cooperation Center. So it's a partner of the WHO. So, and just to kind of summarize why this is so important. So A is accessibility. So again, these devices, they exist in every hospital because they are much lower cost. So they are more affordable, they are more accurate, they're more safe, and they're more scalable as well. I should add to this as well. So hopefully this can help with the fact that there's more cancers now, there's more cancers that are growing versus the amount of radiologists available. And this is a way that AI, we talked again a lot of the displacement of jobs, but this is a way that AI can empower professionals to become better at their jobs, essentially. I'm assuming that in this scenario, moving forward, radiologists are still going to be needed. You still need people who can look at these scans, but rather than going through these scans one by one, a lot of it is going to be analyzing the data that you get from these AIs, and then based on that, hopefully moving forward, saving more lives. See how much time have I talked about so far? Oh, I've actually already gone over time, so I think I will leave it now. This is kind of the technical part of Alibaba, which I can, requiring AI models, which I can talk about. If there's questions about this or something like that. I mean, this is a very basic kind of introduction on this. But maybe instead, I think it would be better if I just open up the room for questions. Thank you.
You really gave us, I mean, good lesson about, I mean, how this digital technology being used to revolutionize China economy as well as in all sectors. Now, we have a few minutes and we can take questions from here. You first and then you.
Go ahead.
Yeah. You can.
Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead. Just check on my phone and Alibaba share prices doubled since the beginning of the year.
Yes. I've been aware of that. Thank you.
It's been a good year. So have you done any quantification of how much the AI applications have actually contributed to the company's financials and how much more sales have AI assistant actually generated compared to a scenario without AI assistance? That's question number one. Question number two, there's a lot of debate on the US, China, who's leading the AI race. And I think one thing that's universally acknowledged is that China is very good at application, scaling up application. And my question is that also aligned with your observation? If you look at the ARM's and the US counterparts, are they really lagging behind in terms of application? And yeah, and if it's the case, why is that? Why, what advantage that?
Thank you. I'll address them one at a time. So for your first question in terms of the relation between the share price and AI, and also between sales and AI. So AI is definitely a big part of the strategy, and it's also moving forward a big part of the strategy. I can't recall now exactly what the commitment is in terms of investment. I believe it was $6 billion. Don't quote me on this because it might be something. But it's a big investment at least. So in that sense, it's definitely a big part of our strategy. Now, in terms of what the relation has been between this and our share price, it's a little bit difficult to tell. From my understanding, there's definitely a lot of confidence in the AI products that Alibaba is putting forward. And that could potentially mean that there's a lot of investor confidence as well. Again, I think what makes us unique is that we can link AI directly with real world applications. And I think that is also why maybe for the share price for Alibaba, again, it's my only interpretation, it doesn't come from our financial department, but I can imagine that we're being analyzed as not just having a standalone AI tool, but also what kind of impact will our AI have on our existing products and our existing services. And that is really also where the focus is of Alibaba and its AI applications. And I think ties in with kind of your follow-up question to that is, have you looked at what the impact is in terms of sales? So we have done that on a case-by-case basis. And by case-by-case, I mean, once we deploy a new tool on a certain platform, how does that impact? So the example that I gave, for instance, for the traffic tool, that was very apparent. So there it was really, okay, impressions go up, or the amount of people that are looking at your platform actually goes up by 50%. The amount of sales go up by 30%. So we have examples like that. And so far, it's definitely been that when a merchant takes good use of these AI applications, it puts them in a much more competitive position. And again, our thought behind it is really, it puts it in a much more competitive position versus a company that has the resources to have a person or have a division that can focus on that essentially. And that's really where our focus is right now when it comes to AI, I would say. Oh yeah, sorry, there was a second question.
Competition.
Yes, competition, thank you. Actually, let me go back a few slides here then. So I'm not a technical guy, I have to say. So in terms of really comparing these AI tools in terms of its performance, I'm not really best placed to do this. But what I can say is that there's a few defining features that we have, I would say. And one of the defining features is that our AI is essentially open source. So if you look at Hugging Face, I mean, you're clearly familiar with Hugging Face. I'm sure a lot of you are not. It's basically a community, online community for AI enthusiasts. So it's kind of like GitHub for AI, if that helps. The majority of the majority right now of the large language models that are deployed on Hugging Face are using actually our Q1 open source model. So the open source model that is the #1 open source downloaded model. Has more than 400 million cumulative downloads and more than 140K derivative models. So that's models that other people have built on essentially. So I do think that that's where we thrive, is that it's an open source AI. Where our AI definitely thrives as well is that it's language capabilities. A lot of the AIs that you were talking about are not as focused on Chinese, for instance. And let's say a company that wants to enter the China market, a lot of that is going to go through AI as well. So let's say you have an example might be, this was a big product, but a car that wants to sell in China needs to have local AI capabilities. And for that, it needs to kind of have these the expertise to be able to deploy, for instance, Q1. So I'm not sure that entirely answers your question, but that's basically what I can tell in terms of the comparison between us and other AIs. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the interesting talk. In terms of AI documentation, I noticed you mentioned the accuracy 90 point something, right? This still digital numbers behind that. So the question is the risk. Some of the documentation has have the legal consequence. So will the user take all the responsibility or?
But you mean if let's say that we're talking about, I just want to sketch an example of let's say that there's a cross-border an application or something like that, or there's a problem in the contract. If there is an error in the contract, and is it the responsibility of the user in his sales contract that there's an error in there, even though maybe the contract was drafted by AI, right? So my belief is that ultimately the user is responsible. Don't quote me on that because I'm not part of the legal department. But typically, the way that a contract, for instance, would work is that it takes the information from the contract, but it doesn't necessarily send it out until the merchant has gone through it and has agreed to it. Now, you did see that the accuracy is incredibly high. So overall, versus manual work versus the AI work, it's much higher. So the chances of it happening are actually lower. I believe, again, personal belief, is that ultimately the person who is selling the product and agrees to the contract terms cannot go back and say like, hey, actually the AI drafted a product that is not in line with what I wanted, because it's the merchant that sent it out in the end. So I think it can be compared to, let's say, an online template. Right? Prior to AI, we did have like online templates for these kind of contracts. We'll take a template, you put in some information, it populates it, right? If you populate it correctly, but there's a mistake on the technical side, and you send out the contract, then I believe it's the person sending out the contract who's ultimately responsible. If it's not, then please correct me. But that's my understanding, and I am assuming that the same kind of standards would apply. I'm not of the legal department, I have to say. My understanding, from personal law.
Thanks a lot, everyone. It's been a fascinating talk. I was wondering if you could give us a bit of a sense of whether Alibaba has a vision of the future of the retail sector as a whole. And in particular, I'm interested in employment in the retail sector. There doesn't seem to be a huge amount of space for people other than the producer of a product and the buyer of a product doing the rest of it incredibly automated, which is amazing. But it also means a lot of change for economies and jobs. Yeah. I do a lot of work with the retail sector union in Australia, and I can tell you that some of them would be looking at this in much more hard. I personally am kind of tech enthusiast, and it looks pretty cool to get done. A lot of my colleagues would be looking at it as far up.
Yeah, no, I understand. This is sorry.
Yeah. So how do you think would be Alibaba's vision of the sector? Do you think that's going to be the same from competitors, say Amazon or others?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question. And there's really two ways of looking at it. Because let's say you have a merchant that is using an AI tool for its models, for instance, like putting flows on the models just as an example, or translation or something like that. That person is not going to be, there's going to be a model out of job. There's going to be a photographer out of a job, right? There's going to be a translator is out of a job. So where the kind of the trade-off happens is would this merchants have hired this other professional in the first place, or are they too small to do this? right? So in terms of the actual balance there, it's really difficult at this stage to give an accurate answer on this, but I can tell a little, sorry, it's gonna be a little bit long-winded, but one of the projects that I work on, and I'll circle back to the answer, it's gonna take a little while, just to preface this. As part of the EWTP initiative, I work on a project that is called the Alibaba Global Initiatives. And essentially what this is, it's a project where students at universities get a semester in training on how to become successful in the digital economy. It's a platform agnostic program. And at the end of this semester, they basically get a certificate. And then we cooperate together with local governments to then link these students with local merchants and help these merchants undergo a digital transformation. So I just came back from Mexico. In Mexico, we're running this in 6 different states. So in all these states, we have universities, students are being trained there. The teachers are actually being trained. So the teachers are being trained to give the lectures to the students. And then in cooperation with the government, we link these students with local sellers. Now, when I was in Mexico, I talked to one particular gentleman, because we're talking to the merchants as well. And he had an apple farm. So it's like a generational thing, right? Grandfather grew apples, father grew apples, he grows apples. You know, son is right now in apprentice. So the what he was telling me was that the way that this has gone generation through generation, somebody would come over, pick up the apples, sell them wholesale. He would then sell them basically through the channels that he has to sell them. But every time he would say like, oh, actually, maybe 10% of your apples weren't so good. So I can really sell them. I can only pay 90% of what I usually pay, right? And there's really no recourse for the seller. So the reason I was telling the story is because this guy told me that because he was linked with these students, because he was able to go online, he was able to increase the income that he got back by 25%, gave him extra money, and through this extra money, he was able to have plans now to start a bed and breakfast with like apple making sauce classes and those kind of things. And because of that, he was able to be hiring some local kids from the neighborhood also, right? So again, the reason I'm circling back to this story is when I was initially telling this part of the story to somebody, his first response was like, yeah, this is great for the apple world. Well, what about the guy who was selling the apples? He's without a job, right? But if this guy, and he doesn't have a job as well, don't get me wrong. But this guy being without a job might mean that for his farm, he can hire 2 more people. Another farm might be able to hire 2 people, and another farm might be able to hire 2 people. So through empowering smaller merchants to be able to compete in the digital space, they might be able to hire more people as well. At the end of the day, there's probably still going to be, even though we have the AI tools, right? Once their operation scales, maybe they still want to hire a consultancy, just to be sure. Like we now have so much volume that we want to have a consultancy that takes care of our cross-border compliance together with the AI tool, right? Or they might feel like, okay, this is great, these AI models, but actually we now feel like we want to have a photo shoot session, or we just want to hire more people so that we can sell more products. So again, it's a bit difficult to answer because we don't have enough data on it yet. But ideally, what is happening is that there might be a shift in terms of where the jobs are being allocated, but hopefully it means that the amount of new jobs that are created are actually higher than the amount of jobs that are being displaced.
Thank you so much, Remon. Very interesting and very informative. In fact, your answer to Dominic's question already touched on my question. It's about AI and with the education sector.
Yes.
We are working at universities. We are seeing the competition or the kind of integration of AI into the normal teaching, research. So from your point of view, the number one, whether the Alibaba have some kind of a platform for the education. And secondly, that what is your advice for us, working at university to face those challenges?
Yeah, I think that's also a very good question. And I'm actually encouraged to hear this because a lot which we hear in the news as well is about academics not being afraid of AI. Right? How can we get AI out of the classroom? It's understandable because you don't want your students to be writing papers on an AI tool and having them in. But I think the right mindset is to see how can we incorporate this into education. So how can we maybe transform the way that we educate? Again, education essentially is preparing students for participating in the real world, and AI is going to be part of the real world as it is already, but it's going to continue to be in a growing scale. So I'd be very encouraged to hear that. So we at the first question, we at Alibaba do have educational initiatives. From my understanding, they're more geared towards right now, towards the economy side. So similar to what I'm talking about. How can merchants leverage AI for this? Also, in terms of understanding AI, we have this as well. I will talk to the team to see what their plans are for maybe working together with education. As I'm sure you know, our founder, Jack Ma, his background is in education. Right, so he has a background in education. He still has a passion for education. We have an Alibaba business school, which is an evidence of that. So actually, education is a big component of it's a big component of the EWTP initiative, down to the points where within Alibaba we refer to each other as students. We refer, my boss is here today, I refer to him as my professor, essentially. That's the way we communicate within Alibaba. So definitely Alibaba education is a big part of our identity. And I'll be happy to introduce to continue this discussion and see what the possibilities are for potentially having some sort of dialogue on AI that fits in with what you guys are working on at the moment. And I hope that me showing the digital avatar right now wasn't you looking at this and saying like, oh wait, this is going to be a professor a few years from now, but if you're without a job. I'll make sure that that's not going to happen. But definitely we have a department within the within our initiatives that's really focused on this at the moment, and I think we'll be able to continue the discussion.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for the presentation. My question is, I have two questions. The first is that as Alibaba serves as the platform that connects both sellers and customers, and in this AI's role, somehow I feel that the sellers are better helped with the technology progress. Like, how do we make sure that the AI isn't like over-claiming the goodness of the products, and how to protect the customers? This is first. And the second is that when you are talking about the platform link, like different markets, I feel that is great. Like it is serving as the international infrastructure. But my question is that, do you like meet any like obstacles or difficulties in accessing foreign markets?
Okay, yeah, thank you. Very good questions. So to answer your first question, and again, also a very good question. I mostly focus on the seller side, because that's kind of that was just kind of the focus of my presentation. There are AI tools for buyers right now as well to make it easier for the buyer to find the product that they're looking for. Now, I think if I'm understanding your question correctly, is that let's say that there's a world where we have all these merchants that are using these AI tools, then how can you even distinguish this as a buyer, right? The way that I think that this will happen moving forward is that actually right now, what we have is your product search is based on whoever is better at marketing at you. Not necessarily the best product, right? Not necessarily the defining features that you're looking for. There's a lot of kind of hidden companies that have really good quality products. Might be exactly what you're looking for, but they're just not able to get in front of the right people due to, for instance, lack of resources. Now, ideally, through kind of making this more equitable through AI, the differentiating factors between, let's say, a big company that's selling products versus a very small but capable merchant that's selling the product is not going to be their ability to advertise to you, but it is the ability to have characteristics within the product that you're actually looking for. So again, if I'm addressing this question correctly, I hope that this will lead to kind of an environment where we as consumers look at products and we are able to really buy them based on the characteristics of the product, whatever that might be. For our candles, it might be that they're handmade, for instance, or that they're organic, or the price point, whatever it might be, versus you're just buying to the options that you can find rather than not being able to locate these sellers that have products that might be more suitable for you, but are just not being able to get in front of you. Does that answer your question, first of all?
Yeah.
Perfect. The second question is more about the cross-border trade, right? So it is definitely true that this is an obstacle for us. It's not like we can just enter a market and say, like, we want to deploy our system here, let's go, right? So the models that I talked about in China are honestly very sophisticated. So they're very good for e-commerce. There was really a recognition in China, this is about 10 years ago, that e-commerce, the flow of goods of e-commerce is going to be very important moving forward. And the models that were put in place for this really were there to accommodate this. This is unfortunately not the case yet in every country. So I just mentioned, I just went to Mexico. Part of this was visiting actually local ports. And right now, the systems that they have in place in Mexico and the kind of legislation that they have in place, the models for e-commerce, and it can be as simple as tax, customs, logistics working together through a digital environment, for instance, right? Those are unfortunately not yet in place to a point where we can really say like, okay, we feel confident of deploying this system here. So we've deployed the system worldwide, for instance, in Belgium, also in Thailand and in Malaysia. But really the way that we do this is we have a dialogue with the government, and we basically try to showcase it is going to be in your best interest if you have a system like this in place, because it's going to make cross-border trade more compliant, which is important for you, but it's also going to allow you to export more easily. And that's a discussion that you have, and based on that discussion, there's a long process. And then hopefully that leads to us being able to deploy some sort of system. And it can be gradual. For instance, in Pakistan, we helped develop the single window there, which is a first step towards making cross-border trade a little bit more difficult. Beyond just legislation, it can also be the flow of money, for instance, that's not an obstacle. A lot of countries have limitations in terms of the amount of money that can actually leave the country, which, as you can imagine, for cross-border trade is not ideal. So there are definitely a lot of obstacles that we face and a lot of dialogue that we have to continue. So when we're talking about the subject of education, a lot of times we're talking about students, we're talking maybe about merchants, but a lot of times it's also a dialogue that we have to have with government officials to share our perspective as a company and the learnings that we have had over 25 years of participating in digital trade, and having this dialogue with the government, and kind of having this educational session with the government, where we can say like, hey, it's actually very important for your country's economy to modernize and to not have trade rules in place that are really only set there for trade between large multinationals, but to update these so that smaller players can also participate in cross-border.
Hi, my name is Alan. I'm background is I spent a career in digital transformation and in the middle of setting up an AI-driven hedge fund. So it gives you a kind of context of my background. I've had a lot of trouble in getting resources that are skilled correctly to be able to actually implement AI at scale. So there are software engineering skills that come through, don't understand properly how to use GPUs and the ramifications on data flows. The AI people that we employ, that I go and employ, maybe they've been writing mathematical models and feeding to some of the early LLMs. But their work has really been, their research has become redundant because the AI models are now so mature that their work will be from 30. And I'm really struggling to get the right resources to be able to be effective quick in this area. So out of maybe 300 people, I could probably only employ 3 or 4. So my question is, internally in your organisation, what are the sort of people that you target and skills you look for in your teams to be able to actually apply this at scale in the organisation? Because I'm finding those skills really, really rare.
I'm also not, I have to be honest, not the best person to really give you an accurate answer to this question, because I'm not really on the HR side. And I don't know exactly what the HR is looking for in terms of like the skill set that is needed to join Alibaba. What I can say is that within China, and this happened, I believe, 10 years ago or maybe longer, there was really a shift in terms of from the government side, in terms of a focus for STEM education. So in terms of the amount of, and I can't talk about Australia, but within China, the amount of digital talent that is coming out has grown by multitudes over the years. So the problem that a lot of times that from our end, from Alibaba, it's not even finding the right people. It's more the competition between the people. How can we distinguish between a lot of highly qualified applicants? How specifically they look at, is this person up to date with the latest developments in AI? Can't really comment on that. I'm sure that our HR department is very competent in that. What I'm happy to do is talk to them and see if I can get an answer back to you, so I can we can have the exchange information later. So sorry, I don't really have a better answer for you for that.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm wondering if you can offer your insights as well as data on 2 queries I have regarding e-commerce, particularly the merchant's perspective. The first is, I think what you presented so far and regarding Alibaba's strategy and strength in this area is almost the full operating support using AI. I was wondering from on the ground level, what's the adoption of the AI tools across these levels of operation? Is it practically for those small to medium enterprises? Is it only 50 to 60% of the processes that's actually being supported through AI, or is it much less? And what does Alibaba do to facilitate their adoption of those technology, in particularly in very quickly advancing environments? And second query I have is, I think we all know that e-commerce is a highly competitive area. And with Alibaba providing an ecosystem, one of the challenges that often comes about is that problem of evolution. And with, as more merchants are part of the ecosystem, they start essentially cannibalizing each other's sales. How does Alibaba see that problem or situation being addressed? Because essentially over the long term, the competitive advantage just over the AI support, particularly if they have the access to the same tools, essentially harmony is zero.
Yeah, thank you. Two good questions. For the first question, I don't think I have actual statistics really on it. I do know that the amount of people using AI, I don't have the statistics across our entire ecosystem. So I did share some statistics just now on our B2B side and on our the AI traffic tool, for instance. But in terms of the actual adoption, I know that it is exponentially growing. Unfortunately, our ecosystem is too wide I don't believe we have a consolidated number yet across all of our platforms. It sometimes takes a little while because of all the different platforms that we have. What I do know that we're doing in order to encourage merchants to start using these applications is two things really. One is educational sessions. So these are free online seminars on how to use these tools. And second one as well is to give essentially free trials. Not all of the tools are free of cost. What we obviously hope to do is, like you saw with the ROI tool, is that the cost of it gets you get a multitude, they get back a multitude in terms of the money that you get back for it. But we have free trials so that companies can at least try it out first and see if they're actually getting anything out of it. And if they're really seeing these results, then we justify an expense into that. So I think it's a combination of those two things. But I think the online seminars are actually a really important component to it, because it really allows the merchants to go online, have a professional talk to them, and showcase to them, this is what you can do with the tools on Alibaba. And all of these seminars are specific to the platforms. So again, all of the platforms that we have. So if it's selling on Tmall, to Tmall Global, Alibaba.com, so B2B, B2C, cross-border, B2C, the trainings are specifically made for these types of merchants. For your second question, I think it kind of ties in with the question we just had. So in terms of the cannibalization, right? This is difficult to tell right now, but I think I'm hoping where this is leading, basically, is that if there's more merchants online and a lot of merchants, they all have their pages optimized, is that we really see that it's up to the merchant themselves to produce products that have defining features, that have distinguishing features. So it can be as simple as analyzing and seeing, okay, making handmade tools, organic products, for instance, so that as a buyer, as we're looking for products, we really can buy products that are specific to our needs, and it's up to the merchants to then increase the quality of the products, increase the types of products that merchants are looking for, and that is going to become the distinguishing factor essentially between if I'm buying or if I'm selling, and not necessarily, for instance, the marketing expertise that a company has.
I'm a PhD student in the computer science, so there will be a lot of area in here. So since most of the model you mentioned are actually heuristic-based models, although the alpha industry is actually the itself expert models, but they have a large rate of the hallucination rates. So you apply them from the medical from the trade systems. So how do you deal with those hallucinations? So, such as the Q3 you mentioned is actually 10%, and for other experts model maybe higher. So this is first question. So for the second question is that, so you mentioned that the data you use actually the Q is open source and using the Hugging Face So since I do have AI security global training in office, and we shows a lot of security concerns. So how to deal with those data securities since they are including a lot of sensitive data such as personal medical informations, and how do you deal with those data points?
Great, thank you. Good questions. The first question, I'm not really a technical guy, so it's really difficult for me to talk specifically about the hallucination rates. I also don't, I'm trusting your knowledge of right, from the top of my head, know how the hallucination rate, at least on the QM level, really compares to other models. What I can say is that in the practical applications that we're deploying, because that's more my field of expertise, the hallucination rate, for instance, in the translation tool that I was talking about, was actually through the study before us, was actually made as an example as having exceptionally low hallucination rate. So for that goes for the translation, for instance, right? And the product description. So for these specific applications of AI, where we're really not just having the QM model, but on top of that, we have our own application for the merchants. We actually have an industry standard in terms of how low the hallucination rate is. So just for people that are not familiar with what hallucination rate is, it's essentially the extent to which the AI makes things up. So that's especially important for an application where, for instance, you're translating or we're making a product description. So it's not just going to write some nonsense about your product. And for instance, the organization Flores, which is really a world leading organization, they compared similar products and ranked our product, which is called Marco, as the #1 in terms of having the lowest amount of hallucination rate. So for these translations and for these product descriptions, that they're actually the standard of the world. The technical question, I'm happy to talk to one of our technical team to get back to you on that, to be quite honest. Let me get to your second question first. So your second question is more about the data security, essentially. You talked about two things. Maybe first we can talk about the medical part. The cooperations that we have with these models, with these medical, with these hospitals, we don't get access to the medical data. This is all stored locally by the hospitals themselves. So we have no access to that. Now we're a global platform, Alibaba, so we have to make sure that we're compliant with regulations all around the world. We have a big presence in Europe, for instance. So we have data centers in Europe, and Europe has probably the most stringent of the regulations when it comes to AI. So we are 100% GDPR compliant. We have all of the ISO certificates that are needed basically for being compliant. As a matter of fact, we just last week over at our campus had a group of the EU ambassadors. So they are EU ambassadors. Basically, they also have their own kind of organization where all of them go to companies and they talk to the companies that are local, right? So this was headed by in this case, the ambassador of Denmark, but a lot of EU ambassadors were there. And in his opening statement, he actually acknowledged Alibaba as being one of the compliant, really the benchmark for compliance when it comes to operations in Europe. Wasn't specifically talking about AI, but talking about across the board. So that can be, in this case, the compliance in terms of data security within the EU. It's also talking about in terms of screening illegal products or unsafe products, making sure that they're compliant, those kind of things. So I know that there's a lot of efforts that goes into that to make sure that we are compliant and we can deploy our systems throughout the world.
Can I have another, not question, but just an observation. We have quite a few students in the room, so I'd like to link what you have said. So in one point, with what we kind of research on, it's 3 areas. Number 1 is about trading costs. We are very careful about resistance to trade, but the PSP actually help to reduce substantially the trading costs. So that's great. So adding AI to facilitate the trade, especially related, service trade, and etc. That's one thing. The second one is about the regional economic groupings. One of the big agenda on that one is the trade facilitation. So if under the regional arrangement, so countries can evolve, can introduce, the system you just mentioned, or the PSP, the trade can be facilitated tremendously. Number 3 is that firms are also facing tremendous transaction costs. The cost is involved outside their operations. And again, PSP can help substantially reduce the transaction cost. So those are 3 areas we can see what you introduced is actually leading back to our surrounding research. Thanks.
Great, thanks so much.
Thank you.
I think we're also on.
Almost there.
Oh, okay.
Last
Another
question.
question.
My ears really pricked up when you said that Alibaba assisted the government of Pakistan to create its national single window for import and export information. That sort of assistance used to be provided by a little division within the World Bank or the International Finance Corporation. So if Alibaba's internal expertise has developed to the stage where it's superseded the expertise of the World Bank, that's a really extraordinary development. In Australia, the government has been working for years to do its national single window, so I'm just wondering whether Alibaba could help the Australian create a national single window.
Oh, no, so I'm not the right person to go ahead there. Like, I like to think that I'm an important person at Alibaba, but unfortunately, this is a little bit above my paycheck. I will say that we are definitely, we're very open to talking with governments about essentially anything. So, and this can be part of the conversation. And even though our presence in Australia is very, very small, we have had a lot of visits from Australia. We've had the ambassador over, we have the consul general, we have had ministers over, to kind of try to re-strengthen the ties kind of between Alibaba and Australia. Now, we're a private company, but I'm sure, as you well know, the relationship between Australia and China hasn't always been the best, and that can tie into our strategy as well as a company. That being said, we're definitely open for dialogue, and we're definitely looking to work together with governments such as this solution that we have with Pakistan. So I'm also very much, specifically this solution, I haven't really been involved with it from the nuts and the bolts, but I was part of the conversation at the time. I also went to Pakistan to talk to the single window there about this cooperation. And I do think it's a great initiative between corporates and governments, where really both sides can benefit. Because obviously, in our best benefit, it is to allow our merchants to do cross-border trade as easy as possible. And part of that story we need to tell as well, we're also really the window for Australian companies to sell into China, right? We allow companies from all over the world to sell in China through digital forefronts. So we also want to make it as simple as possible for Australian merchants to sell into Australia, not just for merchants worldwide, for Australian merchants to sell into China or to other places in the world, not just for products to come into Australia. So I'm definitely hoping to be part of the discussion with Australia to see what we can contribute.
Thank you, Roman, and thank you so much. Your talk actually bring all our academic discussion about the theme of digitalization in China down to the real practice. And before closing the session, please join me and give applause for.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for staying with us for the last minute. Really grateful for all your inputs, insights, and for engaging with us in this conversation on digital transformation. The 2 days we heard from academics,